Hi, thank you, and welcome to our webinar today. This is the third part of our cloud networking webinars, and we're going to talk today about life in the cloud, a set of networking use cases. The part one and part two slides and videos from our previous webinars are already up on our website at cohesiveft.com/webinars. Be sure to give those a look if you were not able to attend in the prior sessions. And then after this session, we will also have the video and slides up at that URL as well. So I'm Pat Kerpan, not the gentleman you see here on your screen today. Our excellent solution architect, Sam Mitchell, is a bit under the weather today, so you get Pat Kerpan. What I do at Cohesive, I'm our CEO. I'm responsible for directing product, technology, and sales strategy. But my roles span pretty much any of the things you might see in a company that needs to get done. Always happy to help out. I was our CTO until March of this year, and was a bit more involved on the tech side, but I think I still know enough about what we do to provide you a great overview of our customers today. So some of the behind-the-scenes people that you might run into at Cohesive are Chris Purrington, our Global Sales Director, Ryan Coop, our Director of Marketing, Sam, Solution Architect. Whether a customer or a partner, these are people feel free to reach out to. You can tweet at us. We have contact information at our website. Please get in touch and we can help you deliver your cloud-based applications. In terms of agenda, this is again the third session that we're calling Life in the Cloud. And we want to go through some actual customer use cases. Talk about what customers do with VNS3 and the overall cohesive solution set. One of the things that struck us as we prepared this information for the webinar is how many of our customers are running production systems based on the cohesive technology. Dev test infrastructure has dominated part of the cloud conversation. But what's really been striking for us is our customers, for the most part, are not greenfield. They're companies that have looked at the cloud and used the cloud as points of presence to grow their business footprint globally. And in order to do so, they've had to have new and extended networking capabilities in the cloud. And that's what we provide. So if our solution doesn't work, their solution doesn't work. So it's a very production-ready, production-intensive business that we run. So what we'll go over is effectively recap our cloud networking story and talk about the concepts of cloud security layers. We think it's important that customers use an integrated approach to security management in the cloud. And then we'll drill down into specific solutions about how our customers are using this. We'll try and leave about 15 minutes at the end for questions. Throughout, feel free to post in questions as we go. And we'll do our best to answer as we go, or we'll come back to them in the end. So as I said, we've done 3 webinars. We've done sort of an overview and history of cloud networking. We've done a series of technical solution cases. And today we're more talking about those customer use cases, again, available online. Let's look at the software-defined networking space. It's definitely one of the buzzwords of the market. You're hearing a handful of words. You're hearing things like software-defined network. You're hearing network virtualization. You're hearing network function virtualization. You're hearing things like overlay versus open flow. And those pretty much all fit into this picture. You can really think about the market and the feature and function set as existing above and below a line defined by the service provider infrastructure and you, the customer's applications that run on that infrastructure. So if we look at the service provider layer, the big noise, the big energy in the market is around the emerging open flow standards. It was driven by Nicira. Nicira's acquisition by VMware was very big news in the market. And what that is focused on in terms of where it will deliver right now and in the immediate future that affects customers' ability to deliver applications, it's about helping the service provider deliver a better cloud. Help me build a better data center. Make my data centers, as I run a global service provision business, make it easier for me to federate those so I can have a better, more reliable cloud infrastructure. All of those things are very important to you, the customer, but they're indirect benefits. They're not direct benefits. There's lots of things going on in terms of storage federation, improved hypervisor security. There's an incredible amount of innovation going on sort of below the line in the service provider space that is part of the compelling reasons why cloud infrastructure is growing and growing and assuming such a dominant part of our landscape. When we go above the line, we're into the world of you, the customer, and your applications. You want to be able to deliver your applications to the cloud, and you want to be able to be in control of those applications in the cloud. So at this layer, you tend to have solutions like ours, Cohesive VNS3. And VNS3 is an instance-based solution. You run VNS3 instances as part of your overall topology. So effectively, you run these devices as virtual switches, routers, protocol redistributors. They become a part of your application topology, similar to how your networking devices in your data center work as part of your topology, maybe at the switch level, at an individual rack or row layer in your physical infrastructure. So you're moving a network to the clouds with your application, not necessarily the network. So in terms of the SDN topic, one thing to note, we've been doing this since October of 2008, so extraordinary depth of insight and customer experience in customer networking in the cloud. We've driven about 60 million device hours of the use cases you're about to see. And again, 90% of our customers are running production workloads where their ability to scale their business to the cloud is a function of our ability to deliver to them. We're members of the Open Data Center Alliance and the Open Networking Foundation as well. So let's take a look at some of the customer use cases. You're going to see some similarities throughout all of them. Most of our customers use multiple use cases, sort of the technical solution cases that you'll see if you go to our previous webinar at cohesiveft.com/webinars. If you go to the part 2, you'll see the technical use cases. Most of our customers use effectively multiple of those use cases in order to deliver to their needs. This one is just a real feather in the cap for Cohesive, for our partner Assimilate, for our cloud hosting partner IBM Smart Cloud, and it's Energy Savings Trust, which is a UK not-for-profit that has been given the mandate to effectively grow the energy efficiency through having a database of the energy efficiency of effectively of the landscape of the UK housing market. So they've put in place a comprehensive system in terms of knowing the housing stock, the type of insulation that's involved, basically public utility and energy data from 26 million homes integrated with a geographic information system. So this is something that our customer and partner Energy Savings Trust was running in-house data centers, but really wanted to be able to extend the scope and breadth of the offering and be able to grow the amount of analysis to get answers to more questions than they were able to do with the in-house infrastructure. So the question was, do you invest in the capital to grow that footprint, or do you move that application topology, that information infrastructure, do you move it to, in a sense, the world's greatest middle? The cloud is a great middle. The cloud is a great place for any form of federated business problem. And the integration of this information and then the ability to project and offer it to all the different users who access this information, the cloud was a great place to put it. And in this case, you had to have the information securely encapsulated. You wanted to have the data in motion able to be encrypted end-to-end, not only to the cloud, but within the cloud. And you wanted to be able to have the ability to take your production footprint and from it derive staging and test footprints, and from that derive even test footprints. So rather than a traditional workflow that says, let's set up development in the cloud and ultimately we'll arrive at something that looks like a production footprint, they did the hard work up front and said, let's get a production footprint in the cloud, and that will in fact give us direct payback, and it will then give us the ability for flexible development infrastructure. Here's a use case, cloud bursting type use case, high performance computing, grid computing. So in some ways, one of the poster children of how cloud is used. But there's a few things that people don't normally think of that we'd like to highlight here. So the ability to access cloud computing infrastructure to get the answers to questions that computationally you've never had the ability to get the answer. So that's of significant value to any financial organization in terms of what it knows internally about how it's managing its funds and the information it's able to share with its clients and its partners. So in this case, I guess it's a very typical compute workload, distributed node, distributed computation environment. But again, think about when you put these things into the cloud. Are you able to pick up and move the image content, your server content, your software content from your corporate data center and get it into the cloud of your choice? Then when you put it into the cloud, do you want to be able to run one or more copies of this and within that infrastructure? And now you get into some of the clustering capabilities that compute infrastructure has. You both want to keep things out, you want to have a secure infrastructure, but you want to keep things in. So you probably don't want the heart beating and the things that are done for service election, service discovery. You don't want those things visible to potentially other clusters that you're running. So in a private data center, you put those in some form of, you do manual configuration of your environment to keep your grids away from each other. In the cloud, the way you do it is you create a virtual network using VNS3, and you can then safely encapsulate, both keep the information in and also keep others out. Very common in HPC type infrastructures, that service election, that service discovery, it's done with UDP multicast. Well, there aren't many clouds that allow you to turn on UDP multicast because there's no way to sort of manage or control those protocols. If you want to extend your HPC solution across multiple cloud data centers, what if you want to separate it across clouds? You need to have routable, in-cloud, secure encrypted UDP multicast. And that overall is also part of the reason why this customer chose to use VNS3 to burst into the public cloud for its HPC needs and to get answers to questions that it had never had before. One of the most active areas for our customer base is the confluence of mobile and financial services. You know, the financial services could be as simple as prepay cards, top-up cards, all the way through to full-blown online banking. In this case, we have a customer who had some very innovative services, needs to be able to connect to their customer sites. So what you see here is you see connectivity, effectively a partner customer network. You see connectivity to multiple customer sites and locations, independently controlled, secured from each other, and into this virtual infrastructure. So on the customer side, you have effectively the ability to federate and run multi-tenant services in one or more public cloud data centers. But on the back side of this, your partners are telcos. Telcos have very particular ways of wanting to interact with their partners. They assume their partners are telcos. And we have numerous customers who have this exact use case. Their telco partners believe they're talking to a brick and mortar business that runs particular types of networking protocols, that runs particular types of networking schemes, addressing schemes, and is just they're in charge because they're the route to the market. They're the distribution engine that you're depending on. So you need to look like a telco. Well, looking like a telco costs anywhere from hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars. And our customers are able to rapidly bring to market their internet-based services, in this case mobile banking connectivity, to a wide array of customers, connecting into APAC, Asia-Pacific telco partners very economically, and more important than economically, very quickly and very securely. Again, production workloads where if we don't do our job, our customers can't do theirs. And I think that's a real hallmark of CohesiveFT solutions, is production ready and very customer aware. Another cloud bursting situation, which is, you know, sometimes we call it capacity overflow. In this case, we have a European clothing designer that really wanted to be able to launch marketing programs much more quickly, marketing and social media programs, much more quickly than traditional enterprise data center capabilities would allow you to do. They wanted to be able to scale that and control the capacity. And in their case, there's always a link back to the data center. There's always a mid-range somewhere. There's always a mainframe somewhere. There's always something that can't be virtualized that your information infrastructure in the cloud needs to interact with. And even if you keep that cloud presence very thin, you're capturing customer at least contact information, at least their email information of, hey, let me know more, tell me more about your products. So as you engage with the customer using the cloud as points of presence, you're at least using it as a point of capture for this information. And like many of our customers, when they move things into the cloud, even if they're using cloud VLANs, for example, Amazon VPC or IBM Smart Cloud VLANs, their servers are running, they're not within these secured VLANs, there's no direct route on the internet to the bulk of the computational infrastructure. But absent VNS3, the data in motion, including the information they just captured about their customers, is running in plain text on a third-party network that they have no inside visibility or control over. That's the status quo unless you're using VNS3 that provides you end-to-end encryption within the cloud to the data center and across the cloud. So it's very important to most of our customers that they basically have that encryption for data in motion. It's end-to-end, and that the VNS3 device, and I think you probably are starting to see this just by the breadth of the use cases, the VNS3 device effectively works just like every other partner connectivity device they've connected to. All of our enterprise customers, they have dedicated networking staff. That networking staff has the viewpoint. You know, it's not the same as what I just mentioned for the telcos, but it's the way they do things as an enterprise. They have a way that they manage their DMZ. They have a way that they manage encryption. They have a preferred set of vendor devices. They generally have an internal standard, but it's not the same. Some customers have Juniper, some have Checkpoint, some have WatchGuard, some have used pfSense. There's a wide array of devices. But what those customers have is they have staff that knows how to make site-to-site, partner-to-partner, business-to-business connections. And that's what connecting to a VNS3 environment in the cloud feels like to them. So it's very easy for your sort of corporate network police to say, oh yeah, this basically, as best I can tell, it looks and feels like I'm talking to something like a Cisco ASA device. Similar as well, this is a U.S. National Sports Association, and in their case, the driver, very similar architecture. It probably looks about the same in the graphics here. But in this case, the driver is not so much a planned, marketing campaign. So in the case of the fashion provider, probably a shorter cycle time and need to be a little more reactive. In this case, this is one of those where this sports association has at least one event per year that effectively is their equivalent of Christmas, right? In the canonical classic retail use case, everybody talks about how do you have scalable infrastructure for Christmas. In this case, their big event per year is the one. They have to dramatically increase their capabilities. So you want to have scalable capacity around these global events. You've got demand spikes. It's an international event. And again, why do you do this? You present this information, you present this content. It's about engagement. The cloud has allowed customers to take, our customers to take traditional systems that at best sat at their DMZ in a limited location, limited edge connectivity, and extend it to the clouds effectively to be systems of engagement. But in doing so, don't allow your information to be effectively in plain text in a third-party network that they don't have inside visibility or control over. So it's that end-to-end data in motion encryption as well as being a scalable solution where if you need a bigger network, add more nodes to the network, add other cloud-based data centers to the equation so that you can use the totality of cloud scalability to be the scalable factor for your business. ISVs are finding the cloud to be a great way to engage with their customer. One of the transitions that we've seen as people have looked at data center rationalization has been they've looked at their traditional providers and said, well, I'd rather have as a service, whatever it is you as an ISV provide as a service. I mean, whatever you as an ISV are providing to me today, you're using my raised floor, you're using my electricity, you're using my staff for administrative purposes, you're using my capital for the hardware, and I tend to have to buy in very large upfront chunks before I in fact see that I get the full value from the software system. So I'd like to have this piece of enterprise software as a service. Well, then the ISVs, various ERP type vendors, they have a choice. Should they re-architect to a full-blown multi-tenant implementation of their software, sort of Salesforce.com or Salesforce Lite, or can they in fact use the cloud as flexible IT infrastructure with great connectivity provided by VNS3? Can they use it to effectively do single-tenant hosting? So rather than there being a copy of their multi-server, multi-tier information infrastructure running in the customer data center, it runs in a mini data center. It runs in a little cloud container, a little contained network defined by VNS3. It runs in this environment where you have one virtual network in the clouds for each of their customers. So in this case, you're able to create effectively a software as a service offering for your customers. The customer pays per whatever, per employee, per transaction, per invoice, whatever the metric of that ERP vendor is. But they're able to basically make the cloud data center be a much more scalable multi-tenant environment that allows them to meet their customers' needs. And again, there's always a need to connect back to the customer site. There's always a mainframe, a mid-range. There's other pieces of enterprise information integration that are part of the solution. And that means that the data in motion in that cloud needs to be controlled. The customer needs to be able to make attestation. If I'm an enterprise IT executive and I'm buying your ERP solution in the cloud, I need to know the flow of my information, and I need to know that that information is not in a form that others can have access to it. ERP is one of those vectors. You can move into systems of equal complexity in the business process management space. This one shows in greater relief the need to have a separate deployment for each customer. In this case, the previous case, there might be multiple customers per deployment and then multiple deployments. In this case, we have an example of I want to do one deployment per customer, and the customers are able to simply access it if it's on a subnet in their network. How these systems work today, they're generally deployed to a dominant data center location, and then all the employees access browser-based applications over the internal network and even sometimes over VPN, or even sometimes over the internet hosted at the edge, and they access the information infrastructure. Moving it to the cloud does not noticeably change the internal user of this system's experience. They used to access it at a browser, they now access it at a browser. But again, for the customers, they've moved to a SaaS buying model. To the BPM or ERP vendor, they've moved to a SaaS selling model. And they're able to tell the customer that you can make attestation that your information assets are secure, and then they're able to flexibly grow the footprint with a networking solution that provides them encrypted switching, encrypted routing, the ability to use service discovery, service election protocols, the ability to scale effectively infinitely, at least up to the capacity of the cloud in question. And another point again to make is that's so very important is there are cloud networking solutions that have been fairly dramatic. They've, in terms of some of the innovations they've attempted, there are sort of deployment innovations that say open encryption into the heart of your infrastructure and allow encrypted information to pass through your DMZ. It's attempted to put in place pure peer-to-peer networking, peer-to-peer opaque or transparent, plain text visible networking between all the nodes in a cloud. So it sort of sets up a peer-to-peer network. These are exciting, interesting technical topics, but they're not something that enterprise network security and network control staff are going to allow. So what's a very important part of any solution is that, again, what your staff in your data center or in your customer's data center are dealing with feels as natural as the type of work that they do on a day-in, day-out basis, and de-emphasizes what's different about the cloud and emphasizes how the cloud is very similar and in many ways more secure than what they've done in the past. Partner networks are just a big part of what we provide to our customers. So you have effectively, we've talked about integrating the customers in, and that's very much a case of this use case. But the other part of it is, how do you bring multiple partners into the mix? When you're talking about global financial services, mobile, internet-based financial services, in and across regions, in different in country environments, in different legal jurisdictional environments, you're going to have to connect your solution to multiple back-end partners as well as multiple customers. In one of the previous presentations, we talked about the security lattice, and that's how you create a set of orthogonal, overlapping security mechanisms using this cloud providers functions and providers like Cohesive with VNS3 function, and then the things you, the customer yourselves, control. Giving customers the ability to put in place that lattice derived from common ingress and egress information, but then used via automation to configure a very secure layer, multi-layered approach to how they use the cloud. In all these cases, agility is more the key than cost. Some people have looked at the cloud about cost, but it's about how can I grow my business? And how can I use the cloud to build a bigger and better business platform globally using the clouds as points of presence? Again, most of our customers are running production, and they are not running greenfield systems that they sat down and wrote since the emergence of quote-unquote the cloud. They've taken systems that have run in their data centers, on their DMZ, and they've unleashed their ability to provide global federated business by using the cloud and Cohesive VNS3. And finally, our last use cases that I'd quickly like to go through is you can have a WAN. What is a WAN? A WAN is a set of connections that connect your offices to an intermediate infrastructure so that you can have a routing hub to connect those offices. We have customers who are spending $1 million a year for an 8-office domestic USA WAN to connect their offices together, and in replacing that with public cloud and VNS Cubed, that price drops to effectively 1/10. So that's something that you want to be able to look at, even for something as simple as how do I put in place a WAN for my business domestically or internationally, and the cloud makes, again, a great place to put it. And then lastly, there's lots of conversations out there about HIPAA and about suitability for confidentiality in medical use cases. VNS3 in and of itself is not HIPAA compliant. No component is. Our customers are people who've been running services for hospitals, doctors' offices, clinics, and they've been using HIPAA compliant data centers. Of its own nature, raised floor, computers, walls, electricity, none of those building blocks of data center are HIPAA compliant. That comes from the customer knowing their business and using the functional foundations that allow them to then meet their requirements. And we have multiple customers, in this case pharmaceutical, that basically allows them to connect together both their offices and their customers in one secure infrastructure. So I'll take a breath there and leave you with some information on how to catch up on past webinars. Their white papers are available as well. And again, people to know, feel free to reach out to our solution team, our sales team, our marketing team. So some of the questions that have come through while I was speaking One of them is, why can't I just use Amazon's Amazon Web Services VPC, their VLAN technology for address control and technology, or connectivity, sorry. Well, there's a couple things. So let's just talk about the IPsec connectivity. Well, let me back up. Let me talk about VLANs. Let me talk about VPC. Use VPC. If you're using Smart Cloud, use Smart Cloud VLANs. If you're using Elastic Hosts, use the Elastic Host VLANs. You're using our partner Cloud Sigma, use Cloud Sigma's VLANs. Absolutely anything but edge web servers that you don't want to access through VNS3 as your edge device, other than those small number of public services, put those things inside VLANs so that there's no direct route to the internet. That's part of the security lattice, and you can see that in the Cloud Networking Best Practices webinar. So that for sure you should do. Well, why should you use us? Why not just use VPC? There's a couple things. VPC is not real good about federation. A lot of the capabilities tied to account structures, and Amazon may eliminate that in the future, but it is a real hindrance. You develop processes that are VPC only, and to run a global business system of engagement, why not just use the clouds as points of presence? Why not be able to deliver your business anywhere? Right now, there is not a mainland data center, mainland Europe data center that one would probably, of sort of the scale of like Amazon Ireland, but there is IBM Germany. So, and we have customers who say, yeah, I need a German data center. So learning to deal with VNS3 as your sort of meta gateway to any sort of cloud network infrastructure simplifies the processes. And then there's some other really hindering limitations today that, again, they'll resolve, but they're nits, but they're important nits. VPC today, IPsec connectivity is AES 128 only. You can't be AES 128 for a lot of the regulated concerns we're talking about. Limitation of perfect forward secrecy groups, the Diffie-Hellman side of IPsec connectivity has evolved a lot. There's a whole series of choices customers might want. You can't use 3DES. Well, okay, you're right. 3DES is not as secure as AES. Well, you don't get to pick. Lots of times you're dealing with a customer and that's what they use and that's their intent, or you're dealing with even a very large banking partner in another part of the world and that's what their equipment's capable of doing. And you don't have address mobility. You don't have the ability to pick up and move addresses. One of your key message queuing servers is running on the VLAN on 192.168.10.10. What if you just want to pick it up and move it to another data center? So address mobility we really didn't even speak much about in these use cases, but a critical part of disaster readiness and disaster recovery. We did receive a question about HIPAA compliance, and I think just to elaborate on what I said, obviously underlying components are not HIPAA certified. What gets HIPAA certified is the totality of a solution that in our case a customer or partner builds for their customers. VNS3 is a hybrid network device. It provides many of the controls HIPAA requires: ACLs, ability to add on stateful packet inspection, the ability to control outbound traffic, the latest standards in terms of network connectivity and encryption. So we're a part of the solution, but again, that rests within the customers, rests within their hands as well. Another question was, let's see, you briefly mentioned multicast. Can you really use multicast in Amazon EC2? Yes, you can. VNS3 is it's a mesh device, as I may not have made clear. When you bring up 4 VNS managers, they're a mesh, so you've redundant paths to this virtual network. Those managers or VNS3 instances can be running in multiple clouds. What you're going to find is you might be able to find some managed hosters who will, configure a switched VLAN for you and enable UDP multicast. But you're not going to find routable layer 2, in a sense, protocols able to run in and across your cloud topologies. But you can with VNS3. It's effectively a protocol redistributor in a mesh, and it allows you to use very typical enterprise protocols like UDP multicast safely and securely in the cloud. I think that covers the main questions that we didn't address in the overall heart of the presentation. And again, get well, Sam Mitchell, Cohesive Senior Solution Architect. And these are just a few of the use cases. We have a lot more of them, and we'd be happy to engage with any of you as a customer or as a partner. Thank you very much.